So from the time that, excuse me, your husband came home from the hospital until a couple years later when you started to see a little bit of change, was he still being deployed?
Yes.
And then we're talking overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking combat situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when he would come home, was he at home or was he still on the battlefield or?
Well, he was at home, but he was out, he was a big fisherman,
Mhm.
hunter, so he would disconnect in that way. And I just remember fighting a lot about that. Like, you're finally home and you're not home.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard that with a service member or their
Mhm.
family? Just like, you're home and you're not even home.
Yeah.
So he did a lot of things like that, like isolating himself in that way, just because he wanted to have a calm environment.
So he's home, but he's not home. That, believe it or not, it happened with our family as well especially when we're overseas in dangerous situations. So we're somewhat familiar with what you're talking about. How did this continue to manifest itself to get to the point where, you got some issues here?
Well, it was really a progressing situation. So once we said, hey, we're going to do this together, we're going to get through this, I felt a true connection and understanding that that's exactly what we were. And fast forward, it didn't really stop there. So, I mean, honestly don't know how far we made it before it it wasn't working. But it just got to where it was. That's when I really started seeing more of the behavioral issues. A lot of it was just it wasn't ever aggressive or mean, like he was never physical with me or anything like that, but he would be physical with himself, or he would go into this, like, I don't know the right word, but he would just go into this, he's a piece of crap and why should anyone care about him kind of thing. And we definitely had a lot of scary nights because of that. And there was just one morning where I packed a bag for him, but I told him he could take it to rehab or he could take it to a friend's house, but he couldn't be at our home anymore. And he went to rehab.
Hmm. How long
And
was this after, I think the 2-year period, roughly 2 years, when things started getting a little bit more uncontrollable?
gosh, maybe 6 months or a year.
And here, this man is a United States Army veteran. We are not trying to disparage him. We're just trying to learn from what you guys went through.
Yeah,
Did you feel like he was committed to trying, or did the drugs have such a hold on him that it just wasn't going to happen?
I did. I felt like he was committed to trying, for sure. Like I said, he went to rehab. He actually got completely sober for 2 years.
Excellent.
And I was part of the reason that stopped. And it's not like I'm sitting and blaming myself, but we were on our 8th wedding anniversary trip. And we're just sitting there this afternoon, and he said, I've been thinking, since my addiction was to opioids and not the alcohol, like maybe we can have some wine together tonight. And selfishly, I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to have a date night with my husband and get a bottle of wine and celebrate our anniversary, because already to that point, the both of us have been through so much that it's like, we made it to 8 years, And that really was the beginning of the end. Obviously, if I would have known, I would have encouraged him to stay sober and not do that. But
Well, hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it?
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then drinking just got really, really bad.
So, not to sound too cold here, but what was the final straw?
I would say, I actually remember a moment. I had gone with him to an appointment for this new therapy. It was new then, called EMDR, just like eye movement, like rapid eye movement therapy. Again.
I'm looking it up now. Let's see here. Come on, just tell me what it is. Computer's running slow. It is the rapid eye move. What is eye move? Desensitization and reprocessing therapy. Good Lord, say that 18
Say
times real
that
quick. Jeez.
Yeah, so he was going to try this new therapy. So he was doing things like that. And I went with him, which was unusual for me to go, but the doctor had asked his spouse come with him. And I went with him. We're sitting there in the doctor's office, and he's explaining what this is, what the EMDR is, what the process is, how it all works. And about this time, there was other things that had happened to me personally that are little but big so like I lost my grandmother I was really close with.
Mm-hmm.
I'd broken my foot and was non-weight bearing and still had Zachary to run to all his therapies and all this stuff. So we're sitting there in the office and he's explaining everything. And then the doctor says, I always have the spouse come in so that they understand the way this works, because it typically gets worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
And I just broke down immediately and I said, I can't be worse. I've done worse. I can't do worse. And I'm just crying and, my husband starts to console. He's like, I'm going to be okay. And I snapped. And that's really when, when I talk with spouses now and work with them, we talk about working now so that you don't get to that point of resentment, because that's where I was. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't care about you. When do I get to be okay? When do I get to find healing? When do I get to process through all this trauma that I have been through? And I was like, I can't do worse. We've done everything. I mean, by this time, we were at year 3 of this. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just ongoing. And I just told him, I need time to myself. I need to figure out what my needs are. And because we had separated, I think at this point twice before, he was like, I'm not doing another separation. Mm-hmm. And so we did it.
Yeah, and there is certainly no condemnation here on Game of Crimes. I can't imagine what you went through. I've been through divorce myself. I would never wish that on my worst enemy. There is nothing, from my viewpoint, and I think this probably applies to you as well, Jenna, is there's nothing good about it whatsoever.
No. Nobody wins.
It causes anxiety. It causes depression. The division of properties is a real pain to the point where you just want to go ahead and take everything. I don't care. Let's just get this over with. So very sorry to hear that, but at the same time, I do understand to a degree. It's I really don't wish divorce on anybody. It's horrible, and children suffer the brunt of it. It's what happened with our kids. So, okay, so now do you stay in Fort Bragg or do you go back to Tennessee? What'd you do?
So we were at Fort Campbell, and I very quickly moved to my own town, here in Franklin. And that's where my full story nanny thing comes through, because I called her, and it just, because we had kept up through the years, and I just said, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I had worked one job at a Curves fitness center because I could work during the hours of our kids being in school. So I had no resume. I did have a college degree that I'd gotten online, but I did not have a resume. And so I called her up. I don't know what to do, but if you know anyone looking for a job. And she got choked up, and she was like, I have chills. She said, I was just telling my business partner, we need help, and I so wish it could be Jenna.
You're kidding.
Not kidding.
Now tell me, who is this lady again?
So I nannied for her.
Oh, okay.
When I had my first son, so I was a young teenage mom, and I would nanny for her. And so
this is how many years later?
This is 12 years later.
Okay, that's what we call a God moment here, ladies and gentlemen.
For sure.
Things like that happen. I don't believe in coincidence, and I don't believe in luck. I think things happen for a reason. So
absolutely. So They gave me a job right on the spot. They are still currently, we're still friends. We just had brunch a few days ago. They own a real estate company and they flip houses and do traditional real estate. And so I was able to work for them part time. And then I did Uber and Rover to make for the rest of the financial stuff that I needed. But she actually, I couldn't get, we wanted to rent a townhome. I couldn't get approved because I had no work history.
Mm-hmm.
And so she co-signed for my first townhouse.
Whoa, what a nice lady. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, hats off to her. From Murph in the morning here. That's very unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Definitely a godsend.
Yeah, absolutely. There was just a little funny story here. My oldest son was, when he's going through medical school, signed up for a new student loan, and the payments were $50 a month, and he was incurring a lot of debt going through med school. And we told our kids, we'll pay for those first 4 years, but anything past that, you gotta suck it up and do what you got to do. So anyway, I co-signed on a one loan for him, $50 a month, and there was a couple of times when he couldn't make that payment. And next thing you know, I'm getting Wells Fargo calling me, threatening to ruin my credit and send collection agents after. I'm like, over $50. I said, the kid is in med school. Doesn't matter, sir. You signed the paper. You got to pay. And, I always paid it, but they zinged my credit score there. It hurt for a couple of years, over a $50 payment. So, and the point of that story is the fact that this lady went out on a limb for you shows how much she trusts you. You're not even family. I mean, maybe in a different way, but literally just sticking her neck out there for you. That's awesome. That's very cool. So you're doing this, and in my notes here, I've got it divided up as life before Seth, and then comes along Seth. So during this time now, what's the time period between when you moved back to Franklin and you first met Seth? How long was that?
It was about 14 months, a little over a year.
Okay. And so what does your life look like on a daily basis during this time? You got how many kids now? You got 2 kids, right?
Yeah, two kids, working for the real estate girls. So I was working on my comeback body, which AKA means I was going to look as fit as ever. The taste divorce revenge body. So I was very active in my fitness. And I was working for the real estate girls, driving Uber when my kids were with their dad. Mm-hmm. And I also was doing side hustle personal training because I had done that before. And would do little workshops and things like that. And
you got it going on. You're doing everything you can to make ends meet.
I was really hustling, but also I felt, I don't know if I should say this. I've been struggling all saying this or not, but I just felt so free. I felt like me again. It just was a really great moment for me. I found myself again. I found God again. I felt like I was realigning with my life and what I wanted to just felt really good. I mean, it was still hard, obviously, after divorce, but it just felt good to be in that place emotionally.
Absolutely. It's, not criticizing your ex, but it's like taking care of another child. And it's legitimate. I mean, the guy was serving his country and was injured in the line of duty. So truly 100% respect that. But it's like taking care of someone who cannot take care of themselves when you've already got 2 small children. One requires already a little bit of special attention, but just because he was a preemie when he was born. So I can imagine that it felt like the weight of the world was lifted off your shoulders at that point, like you can finally catch your breath and, man, I'm ready to start a new chapter. I'm back here close to mom and dad, and I know they're spoiling the crap out of your kids, aren't they?
It was so cool because the townhouse that I rented was across Main Street of where my mom lived. Uh-huh. And so it was so nice to be like, can you be there to make sure, get the boys off the bus? I'm going to run to this appointment or whatever that may be. So yeah, that was very, very nice, especially in a pool. So that was cool.
Oh yeah. When Connie and I moved to Orlando 3 years ago, first we bought a small house on a lake, small lake. First thing we did was install an in-ground pool because we knew that's a magnet for grandchildren.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah. So, and then all of a sudden, this guy named Seth comes along. Now, how did you two meet?
Well, do you want my version or Seth's version?
I want your version because we're going to bring Seth on the show also. He can give his version when that time comes.
He hates that I say this, but it's respectful. Like it was respectful. But he slid into my DMs on Instagram.
He slid into your direct messaging on Instagram. You got to explain that just a little bit. I don't know what that means.
It's so funny. But so he messaged me on Instagram. At the time, I also, like a lot of military spouses, I had a side hustle in the multi-level marketing with doTERRA essential oils. doTERRA, they're the best. And I was posting a lot about them because they're just so helpful. They're so powerful. And I made a post about how when you come on the bottom of your feet, it can actually get into your bloodstream within 30 seconds. Very powerful. And he said, he slid up is what they call it. He wrote me a message after he saw that. And he was just like, hey, I've been following you for a couple years now. And I see that you're into holistic health. So am I. And I'm just a beat up veteran. Would love to meet up and you can teach me about this stuff. Like get my back and PTS and stuff like that. And of course, I'm like,
really smooth there, Seth.
I was like, I'm so sure you're just so passionate about holistic health. But at the same time, I was a struggling single mom, and I was like, I'll take his money, sure. So we met. We made a lunch date to meet up so that I could teach him about these oils.
Yeah. Okay. So, do I want to know what happened next?
Yes. I have to share this part because I want women listening to know that there are men like this that still exist.
Excellent.
Because I had been in the dating game. It was terrifying. And so we go meet up, we're going to meet up for lunch. And at the time, because I was also, like I said, not having a ton of money, I had downgraded my car to like a $3,000 Murano. All that to say is it did not have a remote start, people, or like a remote control app. So I stopped to get gas before we were supposed to meet, and I locked my keys in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily I still had my phone, but I also was raised in the 80s and 90s. And so I was really proud of myself because I had a hide key magnetized underneath the car. But what I didn't put into account is that you don't put that on the muffler because it will melt it.
Oh, okay.
So there was no hide key. There was just a magnet with a bunch of melted plastic. So
Lessons learned, right?
I almost had it. I don't know if I had it. Well, so I sent him the message. He says, hey, I have a table for us. I said, hey, I swear I'm not making this up. I have locked my keys in my car at the gas station across the street. And guess what his response was?
I'll be right there.
I'll be right there.
What other response is there? Is a damsel in distress.
I thought he was going to say like, oh no, do you want to reschedule? Do you want, I guess I was used to those types of meetings. Like, no worries, do you want to reschedule? He said, I'll be right there.
That's what he's supposed to say.
I remember I'd been in the dating game with a bunch of really, can't explain it.
You know what? For you cupcakes out there listening, the men, you go help. You don't blow them off. You go help. It's what you're supposed to. Am I a male chauvinist pig? Probably, but you should go help.
Go help. So I immediately was caught off guard in the best way. I was like, oh my gosh. So he shows up and rescues me. And we sat in his truck while we waited on the locksmith. And I taught him all about essential oil.
Well, when he showed up, was he on a white horse with his hair flowing in the wind and a sword in his hand and a shield?
How did you know? No, he did pull up in what I called the white stallion. He had a big white truck, and he hopped out, and I was like, oh, because he's a typical guy. Well, I guess not typical, but he had no pictures of himself on his Instagram. He had pictures of houses he built and
Hmm.
dozers and dogs. And so I
Yeah.
was like, I really didn't know what he looked like. But we sat in his truck, waited for the locksmith, and after the locksmith came, we went and had lunch. And he was so respectful that even I thought, oh, maybe I misread this guy. Like maybe he's just genuinely interested. So he buys a bunch of oils, which I loved, and we go about, we go on our way. And he sends me a follow-up email, very professional, and tells me, thank you for your time. I'm so excited to start using that oil. And also, I'm frequently looking for lunch partners, so maybe that could be you.
Nice.
And that's when I knew. I was like, maybe he likes me. And so the next time we saw each other was almost 2 weeks after this. He calls me up or texts me, asks how I'm doing. And that day, and hopefully this gets help to any women out there struggling with this too. But that day, I was moving into my house that I bought with my name and my money.
Hmm.
And if he texted, just asked how I was doing. I said, actually, I'm moving into my new house today. He was like, well, do you need any help? And I did, Steve Murphy.
Uh-huh.
I needed help. I was like, actually, that would be great. Thanks.
Oh, and I have a truck.
Yeah, exactly. So he came and helped me move. And while he's helping me move, not planned at all, he met both of my children because they came from, my oldest was with a friend and came home. And I remember because like my kids had not met. And like nobody had been around my kids. But
Hmm.
I thought, okay, well, we're not dating. So he's literally just this guy helping me. And then my ex-husband shows up to drop off Zachary.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And so they get to meet, and it was like, because what's the 160th, they fly around special forces guys too.
Hmm.
And Seth was one of those guys. So it's like they both knew, they didn't know each other, but they were both like,
Got the look.
shut the look.
They've got
And
that soft look.
yeah. And so it was just so funny. But we went on 3 dates, and all he gave me was good Christian side hugs. Goodbye.
Hmm.
And on the fourth date, I was like, are you ever going to kiss me or am I wasting my time?
Oh, you hussy, you.
Because I was so used to going on coffee dates and these guys would like make a move. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I just met you. And I'm giving him the eyes and I'm giving him all the things. And I'm like, are you ever going to kiss me? Like, what is going on?
That's
And he
great.
was like, I mean, as in it's my time, I'm kind of playing, don't worry.
He was being
And
respectful.
he was being so respectful. And we were at the CMA Fest and we had our first kiss and we've been together ever since then.
Well, I want to back up one thing here. The soft guys. Now, so we're at the Military Appreciation Weekend in South Carolina. They all look alike. They've all got these beards. They got sleeves of tattoos up and down. Some of them have dogs. They all wear the same kind of clothes, the same kind of shoes, the same kind of hats. They all look
Mm-hmm.
alike. You know,
I
there's
know,
you saw the picture of all of us together. You're in the picture, and you and I are the only two like oddballs out. Everybody else looks alike. Well, Mel, he's a little bit different looking too, but
I was actually cracking up with that picture because I was like, I stand out so bad. Anyone who sees this will be like, who is that blonde girl?
yeah,
You know,
no.
and it's
Everybody's
all
looking over. Everybody's looking at the other side, saying, "Who's that old man on the end down there?" Oh, so back to Seth here, and I've only known you guys a couple months. I feel like we've been friends for years. I feel the same way with Seth, and he is. I'm interviewing him next week to have him on the show because we've never had a husband wife back to back on Game of Crime. So you guys will be the first doing that. But now your experience with your first husband being a veteran and all that he went through, and he's a soft operator, and now Seth is a soft operator. Did you have any reservations about that veteran thing?
yes, I get it, people. I have a type. Okay, it is what it is. But when I met Seth, he was already out of the military. He had already gone through his transition out. He had a good steady job. And so I thought, okay, he's going to have the traits that I appreciate, but I at least don't have to deal with deployments, anything like that anymore. Or so I thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But, I mean, you don't know at this point, do you know if he's been through any events like your first husband, traumatic events that might come up later down the road?
No clue.
Yeah. So, this is, I'll say it, Seth's not here to beat me up. He might beat me up next time I see him, but you're taking a gamble on this guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that you might just be jumping right back into the same boat that you were able to get out of before. And I certainly don't mean to disrespect your ex-husband. That's not intended to be. It's just a statement here.
Well, they're very different. Very, very, very different.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was Seth doing at that time? He was building houses?
Yeah. He was a custom home builder.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in real estate. So it worked out perfect. It was like, oh, that's so cool. We've got a lot of similarities. So if I was working on a project, we had a lot of flips going on, and he would come and check out the projects and things like that. It was really cool.
So was he a contractor?
No, he was, I think of what his title was. He basically was like a project manager of a site. Yeah.
Did he ever list any houses with you?
No.
Come on,
But
Seth.
it's because he didn't own them. It was for Drees Homes. He worked with Drees and Meritage while we were, before that, while we were dating.
Yeah. So how long did you two date before you decided that, or he popped a question?
We were together 3 years before we got engaged. And we just celebrated 3 years in marriage, and we've been together 7 years. So 4 years before we got married. Because like you said earlier, we've both been through divorces, and I'm not going to go through that again. And we had our children too. He has 2 children. I have 2 children. We were blending them. And we were already so committed to each other that we were just like, yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that, basically.
Mm-hmm. He's, I think the world of him as much as I think the world of you. And it's very similar to our situation because Connie had been through a divorce. Excuse me, I took a drink of water here and I feel like I'm going to drink it again here. And she caught her husband cheating on her with her best friend, so she had real trust issues.
Yeah.
And we both started dating just right after, we were introduced right after both of our divorces were final. And we dated for 3 years, and almost up to the 3 year, it was getting to the point where like, hey, put a ring on it or hit the road, Jack, And so I proposed to her, and then it was close to 4 years before we actually got married. And the only difference in this relationship is that we have, what's today? Today, we're recording this on Tuesday, May 7th, and next week on the 12th will be our 40th anniversary. 40 years.
That's amazing.
How fortunate is she that she got to spend all these years with me?
I was going to say the opposite.
Of course you would.
I need to meet her. She sounds like a saint.
Yeah, she's something. I'm not sure I'd call it a saint. And I'm looking on our list here because we actually had her interviewed on the show. She was very, very hesitant to come on. Of course, I can't find anything when I'm looking for it here on air, but I had to get our listeners to send messages in through text or the website or the fan page on Facebook, whatever they could send me messages on to why they wanted Connie to come on the show. And then I put together like a 3-page list of all these comments. And she said, well, I'll come on for 1 hour. Because back then we were doing these very long form. Some of them were 4 and 5 hour interviews.
Wow.
And so we got there and she said, we're in Orlando, Morgan's up in Northern Virginia. And we're both sitting in the same, I got a little office here. So she's sitting where I'm sitting now, and I'm over at this other desk, and I'm just keeping my mouth shut. And she's not cutting me any slack whatsoever. Well, then we finished the interview, and it lasted like 55 minutes. And about a week or two goes by, and she said, have y'all published that yet? And I said, no, it's scheduled for this date. And she's like, I've been thinking about it. I got some more I want to say. So So we had her on another hour so that she could bust on me again. Like, holy cow, how much of this am I expected to take here? But it's all in fun. And I've got to find the episode over here. It was it was episode 30 that came out on January 3rd of 2022. For any of our listeners that are interested in hearing Connie give me down the road, you know what? You love her because, well, I don't want to get into our story. I want to talk about your story here, but she has been a hoot. She's been a risk taker. Went to South America with me for 3 years while I was living in Medellin for 18 months. She was in Bogota by herself. Studette, I guess is what you would refer to her. So, yeah, she's something. So you guys get married, and I don't want this to be like The View or one of those talk shows where, we're supposed to be talking about tough stuff here. So now you guys are married, and what, do you stay in the real estate business, or how did you get to the point where you're starting to realize, these unsung heroes that we talked about at the very beginning of this interview need some attention? Can you tell me a little bit more how that all came about?
Yes. So there's a lot of, I should say, silent trials that I went through in my first marriage that lingered into post-divorce time. Mm-hmm. And so it took me a long time to even be, I don't know if brave is the right word, but brave enough to speak up about my experience. Mm-hmm. And when Seth and I got married in 2021, I almost forgot, like 2021, when we got married, it was about a month after that is when he was offered his job. Can I say no?
Yeah.
But he got offered his job at aerial recovery, and they repurpose veterans into humanitarians. So they respond to man-made natural disasters and combat human trafficking. And when he got that job offer, I was like, oh, that's cute. No.
And why is that?
I was just like, what do you think? He was going to be gone, traveling all over, deploying, being in dangerous situations again, except without a weapon this time. And I was just like, no. I mean, Steve, I'll be honest, I was not having it.
And how far into your marriage were you?
30 days.
Oh, wow. Surprise.
Well, they actually tried to talk to us before and said, "It's like our wedding's coming up, so I just want to focus on that, and we can talk afterwards." And I just was like, I do not want to do this. I don't want to go through this lifestyle man. I don't want to be second in my marriage again. All these things start coming back to me of my previous experience. And the owners, we ended up sitting down with them after the wedding and spending some time with them. And I will be honest, when we did that, by the end of it, I wanted a job with Ariel.
Look at you.
Because I was just so blown away with everything they wanted to accomplish and all the people that they wanted to help. And they were a new, Seth was their first hire. They were a new nonprofit. And I said, there's got to be a way that I can help. I want to help. There's got to be a way that I can help. Mm-hmm. Seth obviously took the job. He's still with them. And I started thinking, well, if you are going to repurpose veterans, I'm not going to be the only spouse that's going to have resistance around this or feel like, no, I don't want you to do this. Because a lot of the times when you're in the service, you've got the veteran is getting ready to transition out. So he's got his own stress to be like, well, what am I going to do now? I'm going to provide for my family. And where's my adrenaline going to come from? Where am I going to get high from? And you've got the spouse leading up to it saying, we're going to have a normal life. This is going to be so great. He's going to be all set. He can help me with the kids. He can help me with the chores. He can help me with all these things. And then transition happens. And then you've got a veteran with no purpose, stressed out, depressed, all these things. And then you have a spouse that, like you said earlier, there's a whole other caretaking aspect to that. And a lot of times that's why a lot of people are getting divorced post transitioning out of the military. And I said, we've got to have something for these spouses and the families. And the owners were like, okay, do you want to do that? And I was like, no, I don't want
The
to do
owner of
that.
Aerial Recovery?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I said, do you want, I think that's great. That's a great idea. Do you want to do something like that? And I was like, oh, absolutely. Like, I'm committed to my real estate career. I don't even know what that would look like, kind of thing. But as you hire people on, and as heal, they have their Heal the Heroes program. As they go through that program, feel free to give them my number. The spouse is my number. I'm happy to be a support system. I'm happy to be a listening ear. And so that's kind of where I sit myself into that place. 2022 was a real tough year for me. My father died of pancreatic and prostate cancer very quickly, and we had to watch him go through all that. And then that fall, my granddaddy, my sweet granddaddy, passed away. He was 91, so he lived a really good life. But I had a lot of loss, and at Christmas time frame, I remember just being like, feeling so depressed, feeling so down, and feeling like I had no clue why I wasn't happy. Like, am I really just in grief, or am I unhappy? And I text one of my girlfriends. She's a give it to you straight girlfriend. They're the best kind. And I said, I don't know what is going on with me, but I am so depressed. I can't get off the couch. And this was months. I mean, my dad passed away in prom, my grandfather Halloween, because he is funny that way. And so, we had been several months. So I thought, surely I'm not grieving anymore. And she just texted back and said, it's because you're not living in your purpose. And she's known me long enough. She's like, you help women. What are you doing in real estate? And I was just like, gosh, I don't even know what that looks like anymore, because she was referring to my coaching business with women with body and visual weight loss trauma. And I just thought, I just don't know if I'm going to do that again or whatever. So that following January, I joined a mastermind group called G-Force, and decided 2023 was going to be my yes year. And I was going to start taking the risks and start going after the things that I wanted to go after. And I joined G-Force and went to a marriage. Seth and I did a divine relationship retreat, which was awesome. And while we were there, I met this woman and asked me what she does. And she's like, oh, I'm a book publisher, and I teach people how to write a book. And I was like, I've always wanted to write a book. And she said, you should come out to my #1 best-selling boot camp. I'm doing it in a few weeks in California. I was like, you know what? I think I will. And so I did. I flew up to California. I spent 6 days with her, and I wrote a book, the meat of it in that 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of that was thanks to talk to text. So I was doing a lot of pacing and talking, of course, typo, grammatical errors galore. But it helped me from sitting and typing out something. I knew I didn't want to sit and type something out. And so I get that done. And then the next month, I go on my G-Force Mastermind retreat. So we're all meeting at this retreat on a private island in the British Virgin Islands. And we're going to learn and bond and all the things. And so while we're sitting there, we're starting to whiteboard on my book. And I had already written. And the owner of the mastermind, my mentor, Brittany, who owns Aerial Recovery, she owns all the Aerial brand. She's sitting there. She's like, okay, tell me about your book. Let's whiteboard it out, where it's going to lead to. And I was like, okay, this is so brilliant. It's never been done before. This is such a delight. I was like, I wrote a book for realtors to find work-life balance. And she looks at me just like, huh, And she says, no, what do you mean, no? And she says, you're not passionate about real estate. I was like, well, is anyone passionate about real estate? Like, I'm passionate about the pay I get from it. And she said, as long as I've known you, you have been passionate about military and first responder spouses and helping them. And I said, I can't make a business out of that though. I don't even know how I'd make money. And she looked at me and just ran her fact and said, Jenna, you and I both know that if God puts something on your heart, if you follow it, he will provide for you. And I said, dang, she's right. So I go back to my publisher. I'm like, we got to change this. I'm going to write it for military and first responder spouses. And that's how Service and Soul, the book, was brought into this world.
And so for our listeners, what we're talking about, the book is Service and Soul, A Journey to Purpose for Military and First Responder Wives by Jenna Griffith. I'll say it now. It's available on Amazon. I highly encourage you. I'm sitting here holding a copy in my hand that Jenna gave me at the Military Appreciation Weekend. And I think, yep, you did autograph it for me. Thank you very much. Highly recommend the book. Take a look at it. It's kind of like a self-help book is what the impression I got from it, because you've got places in here where you ask questions and you can jot down your thoughts. And you don't have to share those with anybody. It's your journey. So you decide what you want to do. But I'll let her talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. So when you say you want to focus on helping veteran and first responder families, spouses and families, how do you do that? I mean, you have them come over to the house for dinner, or what do you do?
No, so obviously the book is a really great starting point, because in the book I talk a lot about different, it's more informational on different types of trauma, the different levels of femininity, how to make agreements versus expectations, working on communication, and then really learning how to find out what your purpose is and how to start saying yes to what you believe in and what you want. And then we also do what I call soul summits. So soul is not on the book, but in our summits and our soul sessions. It's actually an acronym, and it stands for Source of Unconditional Loves. And we really believe that if you spend this time with us, we're going to help you get back to that source of unconditional love that's already within you. And as you and I know, as believers, that comes from Christ. And we really want these women to find that fulfillment and really disconnect from the identity that they've shoved themselves into as a military spouse, because there's so many women out there who are unknowingly playing small because they don't believe that they can go after what they want and do what they want to do. There's a lot of guilt that comes from being a spouse, and it's not just for military either. I mean, if you've got a husband who is real in the corporate, and a husband who's driven to find his, to build his career, lawyers, doctors, etc. The wives have a lot of the same emotions around having their own identity and having their own purpose. So the book is really great for that. And then our soul sessions, we do online coaching, and we do hour-long coaching with our mastermind, as well as our soul summits, which is our in-person summits. And we just did one here up in Fort Campbell. So we have summits that help different types of groups. So we'll have different groups bring us in. For example, if a corporation hires a lot of veterans, a perk for their families could be for us to come in and work with the spouses. It really helps with work performance when the whole life is doing well. We have other companies that hire spouses, and they're really passionate about that. And so we can add that extra layer of healing and confidence, which also helps with high performance. And then also a lot of our military communities will have us come in. So we're going to be doing a summit at Fifth Group later on this year. And we've just did one, like I said, at Campbell, and then one down at MacDill Air Force Base
in Tampa.
So,
and I had put a marker in chapter 3. It's the will, not the skill, is the title of the chapter. And you're talking about decision making. And so I'm just reading the first few lines, and then the first full paragraph starts with, even not making a decision is a decision. I love that because it's exactly true. It's you don't want to be led around and let somebody else tell you what to do in life. We try to teach our kids to be leaders, not followers. And that's part of it. You got to be a decision maker. But as you're talking here, it just hit me. I didn't even have this written down. So you're talking about women. Well, what about female veterans? Are there husbands? Do you have a thing for them? Are they invited to these?
They are invited. A lot of the in-person things, they're very we have had men come to our events before and really get a lot out of it because everyone's looking for purpose in some shape or form. And that's all that this really is about. So our first half of the day, we spend time with our certified fitness therapist. I promise we're not making anyone bark like a dog or anything like that. What it really helps with is it helps us uncover the things that are holding us back. We do a lot of inner child healing using her skills. And then we take that knowledge, because knowledge is power. So many times you see or you hear people say, don't look back, you're not going that way. And I've always challenged that statement. You have to look back because the past leaves clues. So when we go through the hypnotherapy session with her, we find those clues of what's really keeping us from moving forward. Is it guilt? Is it resentment? Is it abandonment? What type of trauma is causing our subliminal reaction, our subliminal belief around what we're allowed to do in our own lives? And we take that, and then the afternoon piece, I coach through that, and we do really powerful eulogy exercise, which gives us our purpose statement. It gives us our vision statement. And by the end of the summit, we have a base layer plan of what they want to do with their lives. So they'll know what their purpose is. And then we do our 6-week mastermind step 2 afterwards to say, okay, how do we take that and implement that in our life today?
You know, what I really like about everything you're saying here is this is not just, hey, pay me your money and come spend a day with me. This is continuing so that as you are growing in your development here, you still got the support factor going on. There's still involvement. I'm sure these people can call you direct. I've seen some of the pictures online, and you're not talking about 300 people in a room or 3,000 people. You're talking about a very small, intimate group here. It looks like, 10 to 15 people?
We usually have about 25 to 30.
And you got to check out her website. It's serviceandsoul.com, serviceandsoul.com. She's got some recent videos on here. I was surprised to see this. I'd seen them on social media, but you got them on your website now, and they look great. The lady that's tearing up, I mean, you obviously got across to her. So do you have any other upcoming events planned right now, scheduled?
I've got a few in the works. I've got some speaking engagements coming up. Do public speaking to talk about resilience and using that resilience to find out what your purpose is. So I'm really excited. I'll be going to Colorado, Washington, and then, like I said, my big summit coming up in this summer with Fifth Group.
Excellent. And Fifth Group is where?
Port Cable.
There you go. Excellent. So now we've been through all these changes in your life, and I don't want to talk too much about aerial recovery because we're going to talk about that with Seth, and this is all about Miss Jenna today. So after having gone through all of this, what does your daily life look like now?
Lots and lots of Zooms.
Yeah.
Yes, because Servants and Soul is still a newly growing company, and we're doing a lot of networking to really spread the word of who we are, what we can do, whether it's meeting with CEOs and other decision makers at corporations to show them how we can help their employees, or if it's another spouse that has a group of 10 women where she's like, can we put something together for us? We really can cater specifically to whoever is in need of what we have to offer. So we have lots of calls. I have been doing a lot of podcast interviews and things like that. It's been really fun. It's awesome. I love it.
When I was Googling you to get this all set up, I saw where you had done a lot of other interviews, and I purposely do not listen to those because for me, this is more of two friends talking. You and I and Seth have only known each other for a couple months, but it's more like just friends getting together, having a chat. And that's what I want Game of Crimes to be. I don't want it to be so regimented. You know, the fact that I've even written questions down to ask you, that's just because I'm getting old and forgetful. I've never done this before. It was when Morgan was here, he would write all that down and I would just respond to some of the things he was talking about. But this has been a hoot today talking to you. I have seen Jenna speak in front of a group that I was, you know, this is my 9th year of traveling around the world with Javier, my partner, speaking to audiences. Just coming in off of the past 3 or 4 weeks, we've been every week traveling somewhere. And I'm very comfortable speaking to large crowds. But when we did that military appreciation thing, I think I was so in awe of the men and women that were under that tent that it intimidated the crap out of me. And I don't know if you remember, but I actually had them put a table up on the little stage where I could leave my notes because I was so afraid I was going to forget what I was talking about. That was an intimidating crowd that I am just so honored to have been associated with. You may recognize some of these names because I've already talked to some of them about being on the show. You and Seth being the lead, Cody Alford, retired Marine, J.T. Taylor, who is now the president of the Marine Corps Scout Snipers Association, Byron Rogers, who is a former Marine that now runs a worldwide executive protection business. Nick, and don't kill me because I'm going to say your name wrong, Kumalatsos, former Marine Raider who now is an entrepreneur. We got Rocco Vargas, former U.S. Border Patrol, that's just a stud. All of those people are going to be coming on here. And why did I say all that? It's because Jenna got up in front of all these people and looked like a polished speaker. And the way you've heard her talk here with a calm voice and no nerves showing is exactly the way she sounded in front of all those people. And I think Sid kind of surprised you that day. It wasn't just, you had planned this for months and months in advance, right?
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you for that compliment.
No, it's true. It's easy to say the truth.
Yeah, I was also just not knowing what to expect. And like you said, seeing all of those just big burly men, I thought they're going to be like, what is this girl talking about? You know, because they just, you know, we heard all this speak and had me speaking about your cool experience. And I'm like, so you really should pay attention to your wives. And here's why.
Yeah.
That afternoon, so I had looked at the schedule and like Steve said, it's a weekend long event. And I saw Jenna on Sunday. And I was just enjoying my Friday, you know, getting ready to go. I got a text from Sid and he said, hey, you're on in 30 minutes. And I was like,
I'm on what, a horse?
I know, I was like, I'm on what?
Sid's kind of hard to say no to, isn't he?
Yes, he's very hard to say no to.
Yeah. So, but you did a fantastic job. So, and that's, I can't tell you, I'm tickled to death that we had the opportunity to meet, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on Game of Crimes. This has been one of the first interviews I'm doing. I will try my best not to screw up the editing on this one like I did the very first one I did. But if you want to find out more about Jenna, I told you her website is serviceandsoul.com. You can find her on Instagram at Miss Jenna Griffith, and it's JennaGriffith, and it starts with MS, Miss Jenna Griffith. Facebook, check out Service and Soul, and on LinkedIn, go to Jenna Griffith. But in the middle there, in parentheses, is Smiley, and I believe, was that your personality or was that your maiden name? Yes. Good answer. Good answer. This is a pro we're talking to here, ladies. It's not a redneck hillbilly like me that we're talking to here today, ladies and gentlemen. Jenna is she's a certified compassion coach, a purpose and prosperity expert, and she's an advocate dedicated to helping military and first responder wives realize their own potential. So with her background, you just heard all about her life. She's told you things that I'm pretty sure she hasn't told some of her closest friends. Thank you so much for being open, honest, and transparent. I will post your book on the Game of Crimes website. I highly encourage everybody to go to Amazon, get you a copy. It's Service and Soul, A Journey to Purpose for Military and First Responder Wives. Jenna, any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
I'm just grateful that you guys hung in with us this long. And yeah, if there's anybody listening that thinks Service Consult can help them or a group that they know, just reach out. We'd love to help.
Excellent. So I'll finish up here by saying, Jenna, please stand by. And for all our listeners, stay tuned for the debrief. Well, now, so what do you think about Jenna and her selfless efforts to help others? As I was thinking about how to close this out, I got to thinking there might be some people that say, hey, you know what? She's getting paid for what she's doing. She's capitalizing on other people's miseries. So the more I thought about it, let me just ask you this. What are you doing to help others? Are you willing to bare your soul and expose what some might call their dirty laundry? Are you capable of giving up your current employment? And in Jenna's case, that was a successful real estate job to create an environment that is solely dedicated to helping others. What are you doing for other people? Now, as you can tell, I'm a big fan of Jenna's. I love what she's created, what she's doing to help others with, and hopefully overcome being overlooked and at times treated like a second-class citizen. I'm really excited to see where she takes this, how much further she can go with it. As you heard, Jenna faced a lot of challenges during her life. Some of those coming on as a total surprise. But here's the thing. She didn't let those challenges define her and relegate her into submission, did she? Nope. Instead, she learned from all those experiences and with encouragement from her husband, Seth, we're going to talk about him in a second, and some other close, trusted friends, Jenna's evolved this thing into a ray of sunshine and hope, just so she can help others. You know what? In my book, that's a hero. Now, her book is Service and Soul, A Journey to Purpose for Military and First Responder Wives. I highly recommend you reading that book. You can find it on Amazon. And go over to Jenna's website too, serviceandsoul.com. Check her out over there. Some very motivating things that you'll see on there, and you can learn more about what she's doing, some of the upcoming summits that she's planning. Now, personally, I can see Jen and her team helping those who aren't just part of the military or first responder families. People like people that may have suffered from a death in the family that left them devastated. People who have been through traumatic events and, they feel like they can't recover on their own. People who are victims of bullying and assaults. To me, it just seems like the sky's the limit here for her. So please support Jenna in her efforts. As I mentioned earlier, she come back next week to hear from Jenna's husband, Seth. He's been through a lot of challenges of his own in the military. And this guy, he's continuing to help others in his life after the U.S. Air Force. As I like to say, just because we retire, that doesn't mean that our oath's expired. And Seth is living up to that little saying. So I'm excited to have him on the show. Okay, listen, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It was a little bit different, but for the right reasons. Very quickly, just to get the housekeeping done, head on over to Apple or Spotify and click on those 5 stars. You can leave comments on Spotify as well, so let me know what you think about the show. I'm always looking for suggestions and how to improve things. Also, head over to our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com. That's where you'll find more information about the show, all the episodes, the book list, and some other things on there. Follow me on social media on X, formerly Twitter, at Game of Crimes, and on Facebook and Instagram at Game of Crimes Podcast. Now, also on Facebook, type in Game of Crimes fan page, run by our favorite mafia queen, Sandy Salvato. She's the lady who rolls with the iron fist, but she wears that velvet glove. She's a nice lady. That group, the people in that group are just fantastic. Their posts and comments are extremely funny. So check them out. And you know what? If you're in on LinkedIn, I'm over there also. I'm there both as Stephen Murphy, Stephen Murphy, and I'm on there also as DEA Narcos. So come on over and give me a visit. See what you think about it. What's over there. Do me a favor, tell your friends about Game of Crimes. Tell them to come on over and give us a listen, or better yet, a download and a listen, because that counts towards the podcast ratings. And like I said last week, the best advertising and marketing in the podcast world is your word of mouth. So help a brother out here. Now, just want to thank you guys once again for continuing to support Game of Crimes. I appreciate your comments and ideas, whether they're good or bad. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And just remember, we can always have different opinions and ideas, but that doesn't mean we can't continue to be friends. So finally, thanks for joining me to play the biggest, the baddest, the most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes. I'll see y'all next time.